Hello my friends and welcome back. Time is 8:27, so I've taken like an hour, 2 hour long break to work on refreshing myself. And now, let's get into it. I'm gonna start a new project. This is gonna be studying. That's what we'll call it. And what I'm gonna do is go into our master running card. We're gonna add files. Okay. New combo preface. Oh my golly. Try again after 9:03 because I can't add any more files. Dun 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 dun, indeed. How has my 2 hour long window not expired yet? Alright. Alright. It is fine to technically continue because anything that we put into this, it's frustrating. But anything that we put into this, I don't need to have my personality, persona thing that I've built. I don't need to have my master running card in it to actually make sure that everything we discuss is tracked, because it'll be tracked at the end. Doesn't need to be prefaced. So let's just start. Okay. First studying deep dive that I want to do is going to be hypothesis based. We're going to do a thesis on neurotransmitters. So what I'm going to do is I have a thesis that I want to test. Okay, so it still has some information. Hey Peter, curtains up. That's how we talk. How's the stage looking? A test. I'm going to feed it to you. Then we will do a research based on it. Deal. Lay the thesis on the workbench and we'll run the research wrenches across it. Thesis is, can cannabis assist in the studying process? So that's my thesis. Can cannabis assist in the studying process? Methods of research. Viewing the endocannabinoid. Can you spell check? Endocannabinoid neurotransmitters role in the brain. Abstract research. Compare the neurotransmitters' role against other neurotransmitters. To begin, let's talk about neurotransmitters, what we do know, and what they do. Serotonin, mood, appetite, digestion, norepinephrine, let me spell that, focus, dopamine, want, opioid, relief, Opioid. Oioioid. Acetylcholine, pain and movement. Help me, we're going to put in parentheses, help me spell this one. Cool. We're working on a cast of characters before we bring the endocannabinoids onto the stage. Quick note first, it is acetylcholine. Acetylcholine. Okay, cool. Choline. Here's a rundown of the neurotransmitters plus a little more context. So serotonin does do your mood regulation, your sleep cycles, your appetite, digestion, memory consolidation. It is the stability chemical. Norepinephrine. It is your arousal, your alertness, your attention, your focus, your stress response, fight or flight. Dopamine is your reward, your motivation, your reinforcement learning, your wanting but not always liking. Opioid peptides is endorphins and enkephalins, which is pain relief, pleasure, stress reduction, social bonding. Acetylcholine is movement, memory encoding, attention, and sensory processing. So your opioid is pain relief. Acetylcholine, it doesn't say if that's what's communicating pain itself. Okay. And then also the GABA, which is the inhibitory brake system, calming and reducing excitability. So GABA and opioids kind of go together. And then we have glutamate, which is an excitatory accelerator, learning, plasticity, and memory. Okay, so glutamate is important, very important. Now, the endocannabinoid system interacts with all these. So mapping their roles first gives us a baseline to test your theories against. Want a comparison table next? I do want a comparison table, but first, are we missing any other neurotransmitters? Good catch. Before we start the table, let's make sure the roster is full. We already have the core 6. Core 6 being serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, opioids, plus GABA and glutamate. Okay, we're also missing histamine, which is your sleep-wake cycles, immune response, and attention. That's why antihistamines make you drowsy. Okay, so it's reducing your immune response whenever your immune response is an allergy. Like an allergy is an immune response, so by taking antihistamine, it reduces that. Glycine, which is another inhibitory neurotransmitter, especially in the spinal cord and brainstem. It works with GABA. That's going to cut us off. That's going to slow us down. Inhibitory means it's putting the brakes on. Endorphins, dynorphins, opioid family subtypes, subcategories of opioids, but each has a distinct role in pain, pleasure, and stress. Okay. Substance P transmits pain signals specifically. Okay. There we go. Oxytocin and vasopressin, technically peptides that function as neurotransmitters, social bonding, trust, pair bonding, and also water balance for vasopressin. So depending on your thesis focus, if we're just doing core cognition and mode, the big 6 to 7 are enough. If we want a full overlap, let's keep it tight at the big 6, which the big 6 I think cut one of mine out. I think acetylcholine got, it did not. Okay, because I only listed 5 and then it added on GABA and glutamate. What about cortisol? Cortisol. I think that's the stress neurotransmitter or chemical that is released around the stomach. There's one part of our body there that does it. So cortisol is not a transmitter but a hormone. Cool. Just to use the distinction, neurotransmitters are chemicals that release neurons in the synapses between, that's the tiny little gap between neurons for rapid local communication. It's like an instant text message. Hormones are more longer term, body-wide effects, Its chemicals are released by glands into the bloodstream. They're like postal letters and slower, but they affect the whole neighborhood. And the adrenal glands are on top of your kidneys as part of the HPA axis, which is your hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal glands. It's a stress hormone, mobilizes glucose, influences digestion. You'll feel it in your gut. Cortisol increases norepinephrine. High cortisol can lower serotonin and dopamine, leading to anxiety or depression. Too much stress can lower your serotonin and dopamine, which chronic stress, that's why one of the treatments for it, from my understanding, is an SSRI, which will bump up your serotonin, or then also you have ADHD medication, which I believe targets dopamine. Funny enough, though, if somebody's in high stress, because norepinephrine helps focus arousal under stress. So that's why sometimes people are on SNRIs, where it's serotonin and norepinephrine combined together. Oh, my apologies. My back. Okay. Perfect. Thank you for the explanation. Can we please go back to just the big six? We'll stick it tight with the cast of 6 neurotransmitters. Here's a clean comparison table before we bring them into the mix. Cool. That's everything that we've gone over about serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, GABA, and glutamate. Genuinely, I really feel like we're missing one still. Serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine. Oh, well, the opioids aren't on here anymore. Yes, we should. You were right to bring up opioids earlier. If we add them in, we got big 7. Okay, cool. Good. Thumbs up. We don't want to miss that. All right. Now, to begin this process, we should probably begin by describing cannabis. Defining. I think it can be defined into at least 2 categories. Sativa and indica. Would CBD also be a category? So sativa and indica are 2 different strands. Okay, plant types. So there are traditional distinctions. There's cannabis sativa and cannabis indica. So cannabis sativa is going to be your more energizing, uplifting, taller, thinner leaves. Cannabis indica is going to be your relaxing, sedating. Modern science sees this as oversimplified. Most strains are hybrids with mixed genetics. Cool. And cannabinoid content. This is the most useful scientific breakdown. Okay, so THC is the main psychoactive component which produces the high. It alters perception, memory, appetite, and mood, while CBD is the non-intoxicating part that helps with anxiety, inflammation, seizure, activity. And then they counterbalance each other, and that's why they coexist. Okay, so medicinal is for sympathy, symptom relief. Recreational is for psychoactive experience. Perfect. Let's subdivide into sativa and indica. Then. Do they have their own neurotransmitter labeling? Do they each have their own? These are science and culture blurs. They don't have their own neurotransmitters. They differ in ratios of cannabinoids and terpenes, which terpenes are the aromatic compounds that modulate neurotransmitters. I think that's why weed is so stinky. It's the terpenes. Why people think they feel different. Cannabis sativa is often higher in THC, lower in CBD. Indica is higher in CBD, balanced with THC. Okay. There's a lot to think about here. Okay, so the THC ratio strongly interacts with dopamine, GABA, and glutamate. The CBD ratio interacts with serotonin, opioid, and GABA systems. So both of them are inhibitors with the GABAs. Serotonin, opioids. So you get relief from your CBD. Neither are affecting norepinephrine per se. Okay, so we're talking more the leaning strands. So sativa leaning strand and indica leaning strand. So excitatory axis versus inhibitory relief axis. So indica would be more of a test-taking strain. Sativa would be your learning strain. Let me see if I can pitch that. So going back to our thesis, could we classify it as sativa leaning strains are for learning / studying, indica leaning strains are for testing environments, also high anxiety and high stress environment, learning environments. If you have social anxiety, then you might want to have indica while you're learning so it can keep you calm. I did hybrid cannabis to help me with social anxiety in 2024 that was medically prescribed. Whenever I went back to UNF to help with the social anxiety of it all. In it, it was mainly sedative. It mainly sedated me. However, it did help me get through Calculus 1 and Calculus 2. I mainly lean towards a hybrid strain, but whenever we say a hybrid strain, it's a mixed box. It's a mixed bag. And all of these are mixed bags, but to know if it's sativa leaning versus indica leaning, I've always gone indica leaning. So I've always depressed myself instead of stimulated myself. So let's kind of work on those thoughts and let's apply those a bit more. Thesis subclassification. Sativa leaning strains are for learning and studying. Why? They tilt toward dopamine, norepinephrine, and glutamate, which support alertness, motivation, working memory, and curiosity. Risk. Can overshoot into anxiety and distractibility if THC is too high. Okay. Indica leaning strains, testing high stress environments. Why? They tilt toward GABA, serotonin, and opioids, which calm anxiety, reduce stress, and stabilize mood. Can overshoot into sedation or slower recall if CBD is high or THC is heavy. So yes, sativa can be ignition fuel for exploration learning. Indica is a stabilizer for performance under pressure. This mirrors the neurotransmitters axes we laid out. Okay. This is, I like our A equals B equals C equals D equals E type of strategy. At the end, let's make sure by revisiting our initial thesis, we can stay on track. We should also be mindful that E still needs to equal A despite how far apart they are in transference. Ooh, thinking longer for a better answer. Please do. I'll take a sip of water in the meantime. Okay. So we're using a closed loop plan. A to B to C to D to E. Thesis. Oh! You've turned it into something. I wasn't expecting you to do this. But, okay. Thesis is what we claim is A. Cannabis can assist the studying process with sativa. Well, this is just going to be going over everything we've already done. There's no point to recap. Awesome! Next step. Yeah? You don't need to do anything for the next step. Let me, boop, sorry. Sorry, LOL. I want to steer still. Let me do the next step. You ready? Absolutely. Wheels in your hand. I'm buckled in and ready for your next step. Where are we steering? Okay, so the goal is to find an optimal blend of sativa and indica that we could test to see if it is actually conducive. Is there a point in which the THC and CBD contents become in which the THC and CBD contents are optimized for minor anxiety reduction with peak excitement? So we're looking for the perfect balance. And I mean, this is true for anything, but if you want to use it as medicine where you are upping and downing, then you don't want a perfect blend. However, perfect study blend for everybody, no matter the body, with exceptions. Let's go. Let's test it out. Proposing the optimal THC CBD blend. Okay, and then Peter. Probably look at True Leave and look at what kind of. Actually, I'm not going to bring that up in the video because this is a heavy topic, legality-wise. I'm not going to. Cool. Now we wait for it to load. It thought for 27 seconds about this. It crashed. I've refreshed it. Here we go. Okay, so when can we hit it? There's no universal point, but there's a window. That's what we want. THC is biphasic for anxiety. Very low doses can be calming. Higher doses tip into anxiety, so keep THC small. CBD reduces anxiety in humans, notably around 300 milligrams in public speaking paradigms. And higher CBD-THC ratios tend to blunt adverse THC effects. Working memory is vulnerable to THC. especially as dose frequency rises. So err on microdoses if the goal is studying. Okay. Balanced 1-to-1 products are often cited clinically for effects versus side effects balance. All right. Ooh, okay. So candidate study blends to test. Start low, step slowly. Balanced Spark, Light Euphoria is a 1-to-1 ratio of THC and CBD. Guardrails on, Extra Anxiety Buffer, 1.2 to 1.5. Calm Focus, 1.5 to 1.2, a 1 to 10 ratio. Okay. Terpene notes, supportive, not definitive. Limonene, what I believe is alpha-penine. Linalool, mycene. Okay, this is all preclinical stuff. How to find your point. Quick, N equals 1 titration plan. Pick a route. Vapor, okay. Click label, yeah. I'm gonna do vapor, THC, and CBD. Just by 1 notch per second. Okay. This is a little bit too much information. Can you redo this info in a slightly more digestible format, please? Mainly curious about Okay, we're gonna pause for a second. I'm gonna look at their website and come back. I need to connect the two. All right, looking at one of the websites, the THC content is the majority of the resin. Very, 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 very little of it is actually CBD, which sucks. It sucks a lot. Because if we go back to our thesis here, okay, so our thesis is that THC is dopamine, norepinephrine, and glutamate. So yay, yay, yay. But if you want the GABA, the serotonin, the opioid tone. So if you want to feel good, if you want your mood to be good, and if you want to be slowed down, because we need to be able to be focused without pushing too hard. Man, we're going to look a little bit more. We're going to see what we can find. How frustrating. How frustrating. If I'm supposed to get... The reason why, and I want to say this, is if I'm supposed to get a 1-to-1 ratio of THC, okay, that's fine. I'm currently getting a... I mean, we're getting, what, a 1.6 to 753 ratio. We want a 1-to-1 ratio, okay? And then, THC to CBD, if we want a 1 to 2 to a 1 to 5, or a 1 to 5 to a 1 to 10 ratio, we're not getting nearly enough CBD from the stuff that is being sold. So let's look a little bit harder, see what we can find. All right, we have done some research, and we have found one product that fits the bill. It has 43% CBD, 44% THC, and it's literally called a half and half blend. This is the only product. The second closest one is still not a 1-to-1 ratio in the slightest. Now, I want to remind you all, it's recommending that we do a 1-to-1, a 1 to 2 to 1 to 5, a 1 to 5 to 1 to 10. So really, it's weird, but you want to find CBD with a hint of THC, which sucks. Sucks. This is very, very frustrating. Okay, so I'm going to try to buy this pen. I'm going to give this pen a try, see what we can do with this pen. We're going to test our studying before and after. And we're going to see how it goes. See if we can do a little test. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying with me. Let's do some science.